center of myself is the real quarantine project. Yeah. Talk to me about this series of albums, trilogy set. It's very cool that you're releasing it in stages. Was it made in stages?
So I actually had the concept journey to the center myself before I went on the group therapy tour, which was my headlining tour in 2020 that was canceled because of the pandemic.
Yeah,
and Lollapalooza was also supposed to happen 2020 that summer and a bunch of festivals. So I was planning to release a full album called Journey to the Center of Myself summer 2020. But then everything, happened with the pandemic, and it just didn't feel right to put on an album, especially that close to, the tour. And it didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And then, I was at home and I just started making so much music. And then I ended up producing the final installation. The fourth one is I produced in my bedroom alone. And it's very different from anything I've ever made. And that was in the pandemic. And it felt like the final, journey to the center of myself for this chapter, at least. I mean, I don't think you'll ever get to that place, but it was interesting how this whole experience over the last year and a half was really, really getting to the core of me that I wouldn't have otherwise. So, that's kind of the silver lining within this last year and a half was getting to that place and really, being in the solitude or whatever and being in my bedroom and kind of pushing myself to create so much. And I was very capable of a lot of things I didn't know that I was capable of. And so I learned to trust myself a lot during the process as well. And, I have hands that I, studied piano for years and I can do it, and I can hear the sound. And I still listen to the project that I made in my room and I'm like, I think I blacked out the whole experience of making this because I think that it's really amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did I make this? I don't know.
Oh my gosh, incredible. How did you push yourself? You said that is this the first time you've made the body of work entirely yourself? You seem to imply that when you were talking about it earlier. You said you maybe would have never realized that you could do so many things. Which is something I have heard from other artists about quarantine as well. But I'd love to hear more about how you discovered new tricks in this time.
I think we were all kind of forced to in a way, but also at the beginning of the pandemic, I was just like, I want nothing to do with music. This is awful. Especially coming from a place of I had to work so hard on myself to be able to leave my house, get on an airplane, get on stage without vomiting and having panic attacks and stuff. So for me, it was oh my gosh, this is horrible. I'm finally at this place and I feel really good and I'm headlining this tour. And so I was just I don't want anything to do with music. So yeah, when I got home, I just for 2 weeks, basically just laid on the couch. I'd say I felt depression more than anything during that year and a half because, my safe place is home. I just had to work really hard to, be able to leave my safe place.
I mean, it was a time of mourning at the same time, you had to mourn the changes, the tour, so much going on.
The loss and just seeing a world that was really struggling and so many people struggling. The one thing I will say is I feel I got closer to, I went on Twitch a lot and I feel the community got closer than ever during the pandemic. And that was really beautiful. And it's just one thing and probably one time in our entire lives that every single person in the world went through this.
Exactly.
And I know we'll never have that kind of connection with people. So that was interesting too. And trying to find the silver lining, I would say that was one of those silver lining things. But yeah, I hadn't done a whole, obviously I would, make little things at home or whatever, and then bring it into the studio, right? And then, I love collaborating. I love working with other people. And I think I just was oh, well, they're faster at the computer, so I'll just tell them what to do. And then that's a better way of making music. And this really, pushed me to like sit in my room by myself and make a whole project. And I made the first song, and then I was like, wow, like I can't stop listening to this. I love this. And I just kept making them, and I made a fake name and everything because I didn't think that would ever come out.
Really?
Yeah, I called it Thelonious Monk Fruit.
Okay, great name.
And I didn't think it would ever come out. And so it was such a freeing feeling too, because I was just like, I'm just having fun and making something I genuinely love. And it just felt like a cool like evolution of, what I was making. And when I'm making stuff myself, I do it so unconventionally that like I would just be making weird sounds and whatever. So then I sent it to my manager, and he was like, the world needs to hear this. I can't do a British accent. I can only do an Australian.
Amazing. Wow. Well, let's hear it. Let's pretend your manager's Australian.
Well, I can say like so dope. Like this is so dope.
That is really good. Oh my God. Okay. Well, turns out your manager's British though, I guess.
He was British, and he was like, the world needs to, he was like, darling, you make too much music. And I was like, okay. And he's like, no, it's okay. I was like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're like...
And it was really beautiful because he was like, the world should hear all of it. And I was like, wow, usually managers don't say that. Usually like, let's pick a single.
Oh, I want to hear that managers always say that. Managers should be your biggest fan.
And we hadn't been working together that long. We actually started working together right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Wow, what a moment. Holy shit.
Yeah, so I was like, that was that moment. I was like, wow, I'm really like, I'm with the right team because that's, music's fun. It's the weirdest music I've ever made. And like, they're like, this is awesome. And so,
you called a part 4. I was under the impression that Journey to the Center of Myself was going to be a trilogy. Am I wrong? Is it a 4-parter?
4.
Incredible.
The 4th part is the one that I made in quarantine.
I heard...
I made a lot of stuff in... A lot of the songs I made in... Probably, I mean, a majority of the songs were during quarantine. I had my time on my trip. And then, the last one is like 100%.
So...
but also 100% by myself. That makes sense.
It does. I read that part 1 is like the first steps of the journey. Part 2 is almost you're like almost like trying to be perfectly happy. I don't know if that's like almost like the weird elation phase of your journey.
Pisces stage.
Yeah, talk to me more about these stages because I didn't even know there was going to be a stage 4. So if you has as much as you freely feel comfortable to explain, you don't have to give it all away.
I'm an open book. Don't ask me too many questions. I'll tell you everything. So volume 1 was very much like this. It starts with Journey. It had to. Journey to Myself, the song. It had to. And then it has Strut. It's kind of like, hey, like this confidence sort of thing. And then, and it had Nice on the first one too.
Yes.
So it was very, very much about, finding your confidence. And then part 2 was very much living in this like dreamy Pisces world. And, and then, ultimately you do come down from those things, and there's a darker side to like going to the center of yourself. And 3 is the color red, and it's much darker, and I tell stories that I've not told before. There's a song where I talk about, growing up with basically nothing, and that I hadn't really told that story before. And then the single off of it is called A Little Idiot, and that is I'm the Little Idiot. Aww. And it's about a falling out with a friend, and that I wrote that during the pandemic because we hadn't spoken in 3 years. This was my best friend in the world. We hadn't talked in 3 years, and I was like, I'm going to reach out. And I reached out, and she wrote me a really long email back. And the next morning I went to the studio and I wrote a song about that. So,
wow.
And then part 4 is Blue. And part 4 feels like the moment when I really access the center of myself, because I genuinely was sitting in a room making
Yeah.
music by myself.
Yeah.
And I think I just didn't trust myself enough to do that before. And so this was like, self-acceptance and trusting myself.